do people from the Netherlands live abroad in New York? How do they live and work in the city that never sleeps? That's the question to which this NLClubNYC podcast will give you the answers. Here are your hosts, Eric and Mark.
All right, we are live.
We're live.
Thank you. Live from the Salmagundi Club. Good evening, everybody. Live from the Salmagundi in New York, Fifth Avenue. My name is Eric van der Zanden. I'm your host for tonight. And tonight we're speaking with Philip and Gary.
That's
Both.
right.
Welcome.
Hi, Eric. How are you?
Welcome. Yes. Good to have you on the table tonight. And tonight's episode is about real estate because I believe that's what you guys are doing. Why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us what you're...
Yeah, sure. We'll do. My name is Philip Hordijk.
Mm-hmm.
I moved to New York from Amsterdam about 11 years ago. And I rolled into many things, but amongst them was real estate.
Uh-huh.
And I quickly came to the conclusion that I really love New York and I really love working with international people.
Uh-huh.
And I started a company around international demand for New York City real estate.
Interesting.
And that really started off with helping fellow Dutch expats
Mm-hmm.
find their place in the city that never sleeps. And that has evolved to nowadays a team of 16 international agents. We speak 13 languages. We sold about $125 million of real estate last year.
Nice.
And we're quickly growing further than that.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, that's really what how Leven Real Estate came about.
Wow. And so name again the name of your company?
Leven Real Estate.
Leven Real Estate. So in
Which
Dutch,
in Dutch it does mean
Leven, right?
Yes,
live, but
yes.
Leven in English. That's
right.
That's great. Gary, welcome. So Philip dragged you into this thing tonight. How are you doing? And tell us, please, what brought you here, other than Philip?
Yeah, Eric, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
And my name is Gary Abrello. I'm the marketing director of Leven Real Estate.
Mm-hmm.
Born and raised in New York, but I think I've drank enough Heineken and ate enough Tony's chocolate to be considered Dutch.
Uh-huh.
And Philip and I, we've been friends for some time now. I want to say almost over 10 years.
13. You're
13,
losing
yeah,
it.
Yeah. But yeah, one day before I joined Leven and
Uh-huh.
Philip's team, I posted a lot of TikToks.
Uh-huh.
I'm very active on social media, and I was showing Philip one of my TikToks that went viral.
Uh-huh.
And it was a restaurant in the Lower East Side. They usually have a 30-minute wait around the block, but when I showed, when I did the TikTok on their restaurant, it was a 3-hour line around the block the next day.
Oh, wow.
And I told this story to Philip, and Philip had a light bulb over his head, and he's like, "Hey, can I hire you to do content for my company?"
Can you make me a video?
Yeah, it's actually started with the video. And then it started with an account, and all of a sudden I'm now the marketing director for Leven Real Estate.
And all of a sudden you're 10 years ahead, right? How long you been with the company now?
Oh, so I'm actually approaching 1 year with
1 year,
with
okay.
Philip. But within the span of almost 1 year, we've done some really amazing things, and I'm just feel very blessed to be in a position to support my friend with his business.
Yeah, I can imagine. And very, very impressive, and very impressive what you built up over the years. Can you tell us a little what brought you to the U.S. in the first place?
Sure. The first time in New York
Uh-huh.
was actually when I was 16. My parents booked a tour from New York City to San Francisco by bus.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like one of those organized travel things that, you go on. And I remember that, my brother and sister were younger than I was at the time, and they wanted to go back to the hotel and to the pool and to the this.
Yeah.
All I wanted was to walk Broadway. I dragged my mom from Wall Street to Central Park and back in one day.
Uh-huh.
Like,
It
I
was-
couldn't stop walking here.
It
Yeah.
was really, you were meant to be in the city.
That's right. And then fast forward to like about 2010. I did live here for 6 months at that time.
Uh-huh.
I had a startup at the time out of Argentina,
Mhm.
where I previously lived as well.
Mhm.
And it was a travel application. I was trying to find funding or partners. That didn't work. That's the time that I met Gary, by the way, in that startup scene. And then in 2012, I came back to visit, and another friend of mine, Martijn Bos from another Dutch company, Bosca,
Okay.
he introduced me to this woman who had a job,
Mhm.
supposedly. And I took the job, and a month later, my life was back upside down, and I moved here in July 2nd of 2012. And I met my wife on July 3rd, and that was it. It was the next day.
And then it's done.
It was a quick real estate deal. Let's put it that way. Taken off the market, and some life events happened after that that made me stay.
Yeah. And then so eventually you roll into real estate. Was that
Yes.
something you did before in the Netherlands already, or is that something new here?
I did work with a friend of mine who has a kind of like a rental company in Amsterdam. So I did do a couple of rental deals. I come from a real estate background, though. So I started my career at ING Real Estate, more corporate, more commercial. I really enjoy the human elements of real estate and building relationships with people. And not so much numbers. So I gravitated towards residential.
Yeah. And I think it's very relevant what you do. So you help like international expats as they come to New York in particular, or the whole US?
So now it's New York in particular. I do have an agent licensed also in Connecticut, and we have somebody licensed in Florida. Those are on my list to expand to one step at a time. But yes, our main focus is New York, and then Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Long Island City.
Can you tell me a little bit, like, what are the biggest challenges that people are facing as they come here as an expat, or just in general new into the US, that they're facing on the real estate market?
Right. Besides not knowing the city, so like
absolutely.
Obviously, but when it comes to renting an apartment, you're faced with challenges like I don't have a credit score, or I don't have a history, or a landlord reference letter, even, or like who are you? That's you come and like why do you need to know? But they want to know. There's a whole reasoning, and 30-40 years of New York wasn't always this way, right? It was the village wasn't always nice and cozy. It was very dungy and scary sometimes in the 70s, 80s, right? So a lot of these landlords that have passed on these buildings to their children, they're still of that old mindset where everything needs to be checked out, because otherwise who knows who you're getting into your building. So that's an eye opener. And then second, it's the price, right? So you come in and you're like, for $4,000, I should be able to find a one bedroom. Guess what? No,
you won't. No.
Well, yeah, maybe, but it comes with roommates and they're the kinds that you don't want, like mice and cockroaches.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So those are kind of the biggest challenges. So Gary, as a born and raised New Yorker, right? So how have you seen the city develop over the last years, and are there any particular things like you as a New Yorker would say to Philip's clients, or both of your clients, like do this or don't do that, or what would you recommend as a born and raised New Yorker?
Well, it's for me, it's New York or nowhere.
Oh, really?
And there have been so many opportunities for me to move, and every time I'm about to leave, I just remind myself why I love New York City. And I feel that anyone who comes here, they're going to feel the same exact way. So, when I look at how New York has changed, for sure, it still has maintained that diversity. And we've been able to attract like so many different cultures, from the very beginning, with the original New Yorker being the Dutch, right? But I think that's one of the advantages that Leven Real Estate brings, is that we have a saying, we speak your language. And what I mean by that is that at Leven Real Estate, we have 13 languages represented by our team. Philip, he himself, he speaks 7 languages?
On a good day.
On a good day. So for us, I feel very privileged to be part of Leven, because it very much represents what New York is all about. It represents the multiculturality. It represents that dynamism of what it means to come into a city not knowing what to do, and then you just figure it out. And for us, as a real estate agency who speaks multiple languages, we're just here to make it a little bit easier. So especially for those who are Dutch, who are coming here, fortunately for us, we have someone who can speak your language.
And that must be a great privilege for a lot of people to or for you actually to help customers from all over the world. So where do you currently see the biggest amount of clients coming from?
Right. Well, when we think about the real estate market, I like to split it up in twos, right? You got relocation rentals, you got local people renting, and then you have local and international buyers. I do, from time to time work with international relocation accounts, but I'm not as plugged into that anymore because it's all about the sales at the end of the day, unfortunately. So when it comes to international investments into residential real estate in New York City, I think the main markets are still East Asia, like China and Taiwan and Japan to a certain extent, and Korea. And then South America, Mexico and below. Yeah. Mexico is not South America, but, Mexico and below, these countries have always shown a profound interest in owning something in New York City.
Interesting. And have you seen, so you were here before the pandemic, and so now we're a couple of years after the pandemic. Have you seen a change over the last couple of years due to that pandemic or due to a different?
Oh yeah, it was a roller coaster ride.
Really?
So of course, I mean, I did not leave the city. I was here, I was in Tribeca, and it was deserted. And, of course there was 3 months of no deals. Yeah. And then people had to live somewhere, right? And then all of a sudden, a lot of people moved out. And then all of a sudden, the locals were like, wait a minute, this is my chance to live in a better apartment. So everybody was on the move. So we saw pretty much the busiest real estate years, 2021, 2022,
crazy
ever, because there was so much movement. That has come back to normal now a little bit. And you're seeing a little bit of a normalization of activity combined with higher interest rates, making it less, less affordable to take out a $2, $3, $4 million loan. So these dynamics are interesting, and that results in, I think the last month was like 57% were cash deals. Like that's another thing, like coming from Holland. It's like, we have 100% loan in Holland. Like, like, no, 100% cash. I just throw it.
Throw it in the air.
Throw it in the air and boom, I have an apartment. Like, that's also something that you need to understand as an international investor. You're competing with a lot of money, right? And coming in and saying, oh, well, I'm this and that. It doesn't matter.
So you just say $2 or $3 million. I mean, just for our imagination, what gets $2 or $3 million in New York? What buys that right now?
That gets you, and I'll go the square meters then, 100 to 150 square meters.
Okay.
That's it.
That's how crazy it is.
And that's not and you're not on the top floor, right? We're not talking about penthouses.
No. And so what about different neighborhoods? Can you just walk us through, like, what neighborhoods are just really cool at this moment? What's booming? What's interesting?
I'm gonna pass this one to Gary first, and then if he misses anything, I'll let you know.
Well, right now I live in Chelsea, and I love Chelsea. Just the convenience, the restaurants, the nightlife. You have really awesome parks. The High Line is a personal favorite of mine. The West Side Highway. It took maybe about 20 years for it to be what it is now, but it's one of the best places on earth for me. I do like my Sunday morning walk. An hour out there, I just feel refreshed. I feel reborn. So Chelsea is a big favorite of mine. Of course, south of Chelsea, West Village is also a really great place. All the brownstones, all the cobblestone streets. Again, the restaurants. I think there's a trend here about things with food with me. And of course, other neighborhoods in Manhattan. That's a big favorite. Tribeca, I'm sure. Philip, I'll let Philip talk a little bit more about that since he's a specialist. I actually used to live in Financial District. Back in the 2000s, and to see how much FIDI has changed from that moment to where it is now in 2023. Wow, it's really grown up in many ways. And and before that, I used to live in Upper West Side, which is a big favorite of mine as well, near the Lincoln Center. Of course, Central Park is only like a 5-minute walk from my old apartment. That's just magical. It speaks for itself.
I feel like the Upper West Side is a little more quiet than, for example, Chelsea and the West Village, right?
Yeah, I'm actually going backwards in my in my development, but for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for you, Tribeca.
Yes, but if I put like a Amsterdam sticker on the city, I would say like it's kind of interesting. Like I would say you got the Upper East Side being outside. You got the Upper West Side being west. You got I think downtown is going to be downtown. It's like Amsterdam. It's like
the city center.
City center. I think when you look at Brooklyn, Williamsburg, that funky, that's north. That's right there, like on the water as well. With industrial buildings. So like that's kind of like the vibe. And I also always say like they come in and they're like, oh, I like it here. Why do you like it here, right? And I see this with different cultures. The Dutch like, oh, the Village sounds cozy, right? I want to gezellig.
I wanna be there.
Where do you want to live? Somewhere gezellig. Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Okay, well, I'm not sure I'm going to live on that one, but I'll do my best. But then, they compare the gezellig with the prices they're going to pay for like that studio, and they're like, well, I can't live in a shoebox, so therefore I'm going to open up my panorama a little bit. But I think where the interesting part is happening now for, like, I would say, younger people, that I think Brooklyn is still the place to be, probably.
Yeah.
And then as like, there's still that energy, artists and all that stuff going on that, has moved from Midtown to downtown to now Brooklyn. It's been moving for 50 years, right? So it's like
Interesting.
a very steady, movement of these artists. And I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in our lifetime, New Jersey will be also going in that direction.
Will be okay. So let's say if I want to invest in some real estate right now, what is the place to be?
If it's for just the numbers, right?
Well,
if you want to make the numbers, you want to invest in something that is not there yet, right? So you want to, okay, is this a neighborhood that's going to gentrify, or is this a neighborhood that's going to see a significant investment in infrastructure, or is there a big office coming in? That was the whole ordeal with Amazon in Long Island City. That those kinds of discussions are going to drive values up and down. I think solid would be New Jersey, because you're going to get a solid return. But I'm New York, right? So it's not exciting. It's going to be solid, but it's not going to be exciting.
No.
So inside Manhattan, I think you want to look at Chinatown, for example.
Yeah.
Very little inventory there, and inevitably gentrifying very slowly. But that would be an interesting area, which still feels like old New York, right? Yeah. So and very walkable. And then further out in Brooklyn, so we're looking at, beyond Williamsburg, you go north, you end up in Greenpoint, which is great, and you have Bushwick, you have Bed-Stuy. Those areas still are seeing a lot of development.
Yeah, interesting. So Gary, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do in the media around it all? And so you just mentioned you once made a TikTok, and next up there's a 3-hour waiting line outside of a restaurant. How can social media still influence what happens in this real estate market, and how do you use it to influence whatever happens in your organization?
For sure. So when it comes to real estate, and especially the listing, I have, again, the privilege to see some views of New York City I never saw before. So if you were to go to Central Park Tower, for example, on like the 88th floor, and you're looking north towards Central Park, like, wow, what a beautiful, beautiful sight. For me to put a camera and to capture that scene and then to put that onto social media, like, that's an easy win in our ability to showcase the property. But more so, it's not just about showcasing real estate, it's showcasing how the real estate agent can also provide value to our audience, can provide value to their clients. So a lot of what we try to do with Levin's social media, especially of late, is to, let real estate kind of like be what captures the attention, but then to really hammer down the message to our audience. Okay, you like what you see? Give us a call. Let's chat. Let's see how we can make this experience of buying real estate a more stress-free transaction. Yeah. So that's kind of like one opportunity that we do when it comes to social media. I also oversee our email marketing with Leven Real Estate, and we have all these new tools, but yet we're still here talking about email in 2023. Yeah. And I'm still a big believer in using email as a way to communicate what we're trying to say as our messaging when it comes to Leven and what we're trying to do as our offering. And we still see, email as a really big way of as a useful tool. But there's also some really cool tools that are also being developed. The use of AI has been very exciting for us. I don't know how much I can share just yet.
Just share.
Come on.
Yeah. So like ChatGPT for sure. So it was a funny story. In December of 2022, I was flying to the Philippines. That's where my family was originally from. And on my way there, I got a notification on my Twitter talking about this AI platform. I'm like, what's this? On the airplane, I'm browsing through. I'm like, oh my God, this is a game changer. And I messaged Philip like, man, you got to check this out. And I don't think I communicated as effectively as I could at the time because it was still pretty brand new, but I literally became obsessed and I saw the future as to how AI can be a tool to enhance our marketing efforts, as an example. Yeah. So when I came back from the Philippines in January, I made it my life's mission to have as full of an understanding of how ChatGPT and how AI can be a tool to help us get our message to as many people as possible, as effectively as possible. Yeah. So for us to use ChatGPT to help us develop a script for some of our videos on social media, instead of spending hours, creative hours trying to come up with the script, I just write a simple prompt. I am a real estate agent. My audience is international. I have a unit in Central Park. Write me a script as to how I can talk about that. And within seconds, it's there. Yeah. I use ChatGPT to help us with optimizing some of our messaging. You know, I don't use it to completely replace our creative efforts. I really look at it as setting the baseline. Yeah. And then instead of spending hours on that baseline, I can then use my time wisely to enhance it to where if we wanted to go. So in that regard, ChatGPT has been great.
Yeah, because there's a lot of discussion going on. Like is it going to replace like human interactions, or is it gonna? Because in the end, it would almost be capable of that, right? So, but you still are looking for the right balance of like human involvement and human interaction in combination to artificial intelligence, or
for sure. Yeah. I mean, I always say at least from a jobs competition standpoint, AI won't replace your job. Okay. Human beings using AI effectively may replace your job. Yeah. So I think it's important that we know how to utilize it. But again, do it in a way that's responsible. Do it in a way that's reflective of our moral values, of who we are as human beings. Is to help us get to that point faster. Yeah. You know? So.
Right. It's not going to replace your creativity, but it's going to speed it up, and you're going to have to like speed up to keep pace on it. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind for sure.
And so for you, I mean, for you would be, or your organization would be like an early adapter, right?
I would think so. Although I have to be honest, if he would have never told me, I would still not know.
Well, that's why you hire great people, right? That's why you work with great people. I mean, that's the only reason why.
How did you do this all today? Wow.
Yeah. So where do you see this going? Like in the future, what do you think AI, seeing how fast it developed, what do you think it's going to be capable of over the next couple of years?
For sure. So I think there's so many different ways where I can talk about this, but let me try to do it within the scope of real estate. When it comes to photos, for example, Philip and I were just talking about this yesterday, actually. Many times when someone sees a property, it's really hard to imagine what that home would look like if it's not staged. Okay. So virtual staging of a photo is obviously already being done already, but the cost of getting that photo staged, with Photoshop, with creatives, it's a timely proposition. It's also a costly proposition. I see AI as a tool where that cost dramatically goes down. The output and speed of delivery dramatically goes up. So for us as a real estate firm, that's exciting. I also see opportunities with VR and AR integrating with AI. So when I saw the Apple Vision Pro being released, the AR VR headset, immediately my mind was like, whoa, this could be a game changer for us when it comes to real estate. Again, going back to the staging example, if I have a client coming to a showing and it's not staged, it's going to be hard to virtually stage it with a photo, right? Yeah. But imagine you put the headset on and you can actually see what your future home would look like staged, and do it in a way where it rapidly reflects the kind of furniture you want, the kind of brand you want, the color palette that you would
prompt it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Say, hey, I like Versace. Make this a Versace home.
So that's something that we're aggressively looking to implement into some of our operations. And then I think last but not least, when it comes to real estate, there's over 7,500 listings in Manhattan alone right now. Wow. That's a lot of information for you to cipher to try to find that perfect home. That's a lot of hours of research done by a human being. With AI, with the right prompt, with the right strategy, I imagine that would only take seconds to pinpoint a list of top 10 for what you're looking for.
Yeah, the amount of hours spent by people there. And also, I mean, I can imagine you have a very large group of clients who are still physically in another country or another. I mean, this tool, like having the feeling you can just walk through your house. I mean, that's that could be a total game changer, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, there are deals being done sight unseen,
Yeah.
and how much more exciting would it be if they could actually,
Yeah.
feel it
Yeah.
as if almost,
Yeah.
you can't feel it if you're not here, but in augmented reality, it's getting close.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. Very interesting. Very exciting to see how that's gonna evolve further. So we have some audience here. Is there any people who has any questions about real estate in New York? Anybody who still looking to buy a home and or trying to sell? You do both, right?
Yes,
of course, yes. Well, not so far, and also nothing from our viewers online. So I'll just stick with asking the questions here.
Okay.
So, what is your what's your favorite home or apartment or place that you've ever sold?
that I ever sold myself.
Which one did you like, or do you like remember the most of like this was an unique place or unique accomplishment?
Yeah. I think one of the first ones, right? They stick with you. And it was a pre-work conversion on the Upper West Side. And it was a Colombian client. And in fact, they were referred to me by another Colombian client that found me online. And I mean, I'm fluent in Spanish, but still, like, I'm working here with an international client from a country I didn't know at the time. I'd been to Colombia once maybe, and I'm doing this in another language, and they don't know that this is only my first deal, right? They have no clue. And I remember that, their budget was up to 2, and we made an offer, but we missed out. And then I was like, well, maybe I should just push it a little further, and I went to 3.
Yeah.
And they loved it, and they're like, okay, this is it, we're done here, we want this. And then I remember the patriarch of the family asking, but at this price point, what else can I get? And I was like, I don't actually know, but this is a great one. And his wife was so pissed off with me. She's like, no, this is it. Tell him. But that was like the first time that you're getting, at that time, I hadn't really transformed the currencies yet and how much it costs to live here. So the first time you get like an almost 6-figure check for a deal, it was welcome.
That's nice. That's right. That must be very nice. Yeah. So we have a question, Catherine.
Yes. So for young families from the Netherlands moving to New York, where do you recommend they buy their first home? Brooklyn, Manhattan, or outside the city completely?
Well, I think a lot of that is logistics. So logistics is one. How are you going to get to work? Are you both working? Is one working? Second, schools, right? So there's public schools versus private schools. There are, these are very essential questions. And therefore, like when it's a young family with school-aged children, I always say, let's start with the school.
Yeah, really?
Because if you haven't decided on the school, I can pinpoint where you need to live.
Interesting.
And because I don't think you're going to put your kid in an hour and a half school bus every day. So both ways, right? So I think that's where it starts with young children. I can speak out of my own experience in Tribeca that really works for me. My kids are 7 and 10. But there's also something like fair housing in New York City that we're actually not allowed to talk about. Oh, you have to live there because you're a family, or you have to live there because you're single. All of these are protected classes. So therefore, let's go and talk about where you want to go to school. I can ask that question. I can pinpoint you in a direction. And then from there, we can look where you need to live to get there.
But that is such a different way of thinking and decision making. I feel like, because in the Netherlands, you buy a house and then you just start looking what schools in the neighborhood.
Right.
This is the exact other way
it starts
around.
with schools.
So there's so much more than just selling a house to a person. It seems like a much longer process here you're facing.
Oh, longer processes are my middle name. I think my record right now, my record is always ongoing, right? There's going to be that one deal in 25 years that took you 25 years. But right now it's 6 years from meeting them on Times Square, and my son was in a stroller. And by the time they closed in their apartment, my son was 7.
All right. Yeah. It is a tricky one. So we just one more question, and this is a question we ask everyone.
Okay.
And you already spoke a little bit about good restaurants? Because this is like I feel like this is the most asked question by Dutch people, either tourists or people that live here. What's your favorite restaurant to go to? Who goes first?
This guy first.
Such a loaded
All right, more
question.
than one is okay.
Yeah,
more
no,
than
for
one is
sure.
okay.
Well, let me see if I can break it down by favorite cuisine or dish.
Mhm.
So I think the most popular question I'm always asked, what's your favorite pizza?
Oh, yeah.
And my favorite pizza at the moment still is, for the last 3 years, it was Lucali's over in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Before Lucali's, my answer was always the Farah.
Okay.
And the guy who used to cook the Farah, he found God through pizza.
Ah.
He'd be the only one that would touch the pizza. And if he's tired, if he wants to go on vacation, if he's sick, he would close shop, because his philosophy was, I'd rather lose that customer for that day than have him try an inferior product and lose him for a lifetime. And unfortunately, he passed away recently. And so RIP to the legend, Don Marco. But yeah, Lucali's was a close second, is now king of New York, in my opinion. When it comes to favorite French restaurant, I probably say right now near Grand Central's place called Le Pavillon is Daniel Boulud's new flagship restaurant. Has a tasting menu, service is impeccable, the presentation is so beautiful, really high quality food. So that's one of my favorite places to go. I'd probably say my new favorite restaurant of 2023 is this place called Principe over in Soho. It's an Italian seafood restaurant. And there are two alumnus from this restaurant called The Nomad. They produce so much talent, and they went out and they started their own business. And yeah, it's probably been like one of my favorite. And then let's try to diversify. Like my favorite bagel is actually in the Upper West Side, called Absolute Bagel.
Okay.
So when I used to live, when I lived in the Upper West Side, I was in 63rd and West End. Absolute Bagel was all the way in the 100s. And I would always like wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, take my Uber or like ride a bicycle just to get a bagel. It's that good, you know? And so the everything bagel, cream cheese, or like with lox, it's the way to go.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite. Yep.
So I'll leave it with that for now. But
if you don't need an apartment, but a place to go, write us. Write us.
Yeah.
Gary has a long list.
That's funny. We're thinking of making a NL Club like favorite list of favorite restaurants from all the Dutchies here, and just we ask the same thing Paul de Leeuw and you Hordijk like the last few weeks. So we're just trying to work on a list of favorites. So I'll definitely get back to you for that. So
I'm gonna share some cocktail bars.
Also
because
good.
the cocktail bars that strikes me. Restaurants I like, but the cocktail bars stick. I don't know, speakeasies and stuff.
Speakeasy,
So there's a new one up the 70 Pine Street. What's it called? There's a restaurant Saga,
Overstory.
but above it, Overstory.
Overstory. Yes.
Beautiful,
Overstory.
because you're on a roof, but it's not. You're like on an old school roof, like you're in old New York on a roof, and the bar is really classy. One of my all-time favorites, I haven't been in for a while, is Employees Only. Really like that on what's that? Christopher and
Hudson,
on Hudson,
West Village.
Yep. And I think if you're from, if you're coming to visit, like something like the Back Room in the Lower East Side, or a Blind Barber, or like anywhere you're like walking in that doesn't make any sense.
Do you know the little shop in the
Yes, we went there too.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
That's my personal favorite.
Oh,
I love that one,
fantastic.
Little
Yeah.
shop. Yeah. It's like it's funny. It's so feels like so real, so New York. So,
right.
Back to the Prohibition time.
Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. If there's no other questions from our audience, I would like to thank you very much, Philip and Gary from Leven Real Estate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
All right. Nice. Good work, Gary.
How do people from the Netherlands live abroad in New York? How do they live and work in the city that never sleeps? That's the question to which this NL Club NYC podcast will give you the answers. Here are your hosts, Eric and Mark.
See you next year.